Well, the mayor kicked off his 5-borough farewell tour this week. Some suggesting the mayor trying to cement his legacy, of course, that being a positive one. But let's see what our panel has to say. And joining us tonight, Democratic political consultant Michael Tobman, Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author. Ed Cox returns to the show. Ed, chairman, of course, of the New York State Republican Party. He's getting some buzz of his own about a possible run for governor next year. We'll talk about that in our next segment. And Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent, who probably is not running for governor next year. All right, I'll start with you. 12 years ago, assuming we divined that he would get the third term, is he the mayor you expected he would have been?
I would say it was a mayoralty in two parts, the first 8 years and then the last 4 years. So divine it or not, I'd say for the first 8 years, he was a tremendous mayor. A tremendous mayor. What he did with the school system, what he did with development, what he did with resuscitating and reviving New York, especially Brooklyn's long neglected waterfront areas, what he tried to do with affordable housing, incredible accomplishments. Public safety, public health. Where the negatives are, I think, are not in terms of administration, but are in terms of tone. I think that it's tough to not have money in New York City. It's always been tough, but I think it's tougher now. And I think that could have been better. He's not a touchy-feely kind of guy, but he broke the way things were always done. Something being done for generations was not reason for him to continue doing it. And I think the data-driven, breaking with orthodoxy piece is his legacy, in addition to public health and public safety.
You've covered a lot of mayors, Dominic, and administrations and known him personally. How was he different than predecessors, both good and bad?
Well, to me, it's remarkable that Bloomberg, one of his negatives is tone. But I think that given in time, as time goes on, that's going to change, Richard, because Bloomberg came in after Rudy Giuliani. And I don't think the city could have been any more polarized at that point. And the olive branches that Bloomberg extended, see, he's not getting credit now because the third term, because of his money, which is seen as he had deficits. But I am telling you, one of the first things he did was call David Dinkins, the city's first African-American mayor that had been excluded under Giuliani.
I should have been clearer. Tone is not just about race relations in New York City. I'm talking about tone on an issue that's difficult to talk about, which is class and poverty and wealth and affluence.
And he also had, there was an edge to him, like even remember after Sandy and the marathon, those kind of things. Sometimes he came off as dismissive, that he didn't care, but he did seem to care, didn't he?
I think he did care, and I think that history is going to judge him as a mayor that brought the city together, that brought all New Yorkers together. And I think that was a major accomplishment.
Andrew?
I don't know if he's a mayor who brought New Yorkers together. I think that there is. I think there is something about class, and there was some aspect to him that just didn't want to be bothered with questions that hit a little too close to home for him. He was dismissive about things like that. I also think that these things tend to work on spectrums. The city shifts one direction, the city shifts another direction. And I think it did go perhaps a little bit too far in terms of the robust economic development and the over-the-top emphasis on building in the top end. And I think that eventually came back to bite him. I mean, I think he did very well for a long time.
But elections are about choices, and the choice was between Mike Bloomberg or Mark Green, and then Mike Bloomberg or Bill Thompson, and then the city did well. He was a good, he's a great mayor.
I just want to make, I know you're going to chairman, but I just want you to understand, the black community, when Bloomberg came in office, had been completely shut out. Rudy Giuliani would not meet with African-American leaders. The first thing that Michael Bloomberg did was bring the city back together.
And crime rates went down, Ed. How would you assess
crime rates are going down anyway,
Yeah.
and why that is an accomplishment. The thing you have to remember about it, was not a politician. He did things formally the right way. I mean, reached out to all communities, did what you ought to do. But he will be known for what he did, the big plans he did, the rezoning of New York. Now, who cares about rezoning? Well, let me tell you, a city should care about rezoning. And he brought New York City into the future with that.
40% of all of the land in New York City was rezoned in his 12 years, which is amazing when you think about it. Almost half of the 5 boroughs got remade.
To a gutsy call with cigarettes, banning indoor smoking cigarettes, huge, spread all around the world. I mean, this is New York.
Now, how about, and this is an inside baseball crowd, but The one thing I think people forget is, for 12 years, we didn't have one story about, well, what kind of special interests are going to get in the door here? What political favors does he owe? Fundraising, questions about, and this is a Democrat-Republican thing, this isn't about one party. He didn't need anybody's money. He had more money than anybody. That didn't come up once. And obviously it's going to come up again in the future because nobody's got his kind of resources. But I think people forget that. That was a non-issue.
Even at the end, I mean, it's almost Washington. He came to the Economic Club from Manhattan. I was there. I'm Secretary of the Economic Club. He talked about the labor electoral complex. That is huge. Because now that he's no longer mayor, I mean, how is this city going to react to labor with all the retros? I mean, is this labor going to drive New York City into bankruptcy? That is an issue, and he put his finger right on it without worrying about the politics.
It's a fabulous term, and I think it's an important one, and it's one that's going to be, that should be discussed much more. But the direct participation of vast wealth in politics, not through lobbyists, not through party bosses, not through the media. Of course, he's a media tycoon. Media magnate, but the direct participation of wealth in politics, this was new.
I got to hit a break, but real quickly, guys, the same question I asked Chris Smith, with the benefit of hindsight, and some of you guys know the mayor a little bit on the personal level, if he had it all over again, do you think he would have quit while he was ahead after 8 years, or do you think he really cares and that what he did in the last 4 years, good and bad, he still wants on his ledger?
Oh, he did good things for New York in the last 4 years. I think he would do it all over again, to answer that question.
If he had to do it all over again, no, Chris was right, no doubt about it. He would definitely seek that third term. No matter what we say, he goes down in history, this political novice, as the chairman pointed out, as serving equal as the most terms of any man that's ever been mayor of New York City.
I absolutely agree, and there were significant accomplishments in the third term, but the tone was different. Green taxis for the outer boroughs. There's now increased access for transportation in communities that have been underserved. Things like that do make the city more livable. He would have done it all again, for sure.
I agree.
All right. When we come back, which Republican will challenge Andrew Cuomo next year? Could it be the Westchester County executive, or could the person be sitting at our table? And yes, I'm looking at you, Dominic. No, our political grab bag, that and much more after this.